First, though, here's Louise Byrne.
Give me the green light, 'cause I'm ready to go.
We're told we shouldn't be going on any non-essential overseas travel, but since July, those arriving in Ireland from a green list country don't have to restrict their movements.
And we think a green list approach, whereby we are not applying the kind of restrictions to countries that have similar risk levels to Ireland, makes sense.
But as COVID rates spiked across Europe, the green list began to shrink.
This evening, 5 destinations have been removed from that list because of deteriorating virus numbers.
Since then, Ireland's COVID cases have increased considerably, but countries with lower rates haven't been added to the list. We are asking people coming from places with less COVID than here to restrict their movements. So what is happening with Ireland's green list? There are still aircraft to be seen, but it's been a quiet time for plane spotters. Overseas travel is down by 90% this summer, and the green list was supposed to be a first step towards expanding connectivity. But in the past month, there hasn't been any countries added to the list. Originally a Fine Gael proposal that we understand Fianna Fáil were less than thrilled to have to implement, there's been in large measure radio silence on the issue since the beginning of August. It feels like nobody really wants to talk about the green list.
Do we have an update on the green list? It's to be updated every 2 weeks. Are there countries being added or taken out of it?
The green list is a matter for government.
When the list was first drafted, our infection rate was around 5 cases per 100,000 people. Now the number is 32. We're not alone in that increase, and all the current green list countries, including Greece and Italy, still have lower rates than us. But there are now plenty of other places in Europe with fewer COVID cases which are not on the list, including Sweden and the United Kingdom. If you travel from those countries, you're still required to restrict your movements for 14 days. It's frustrating for Donal Kane. He and his young family haven't been back to Ireland in months.
I live in London, lived here 15 years, but in many ways Ireland is still home. So friends, family there, we're back and forth quite regularly, or until recently have been anyway. The advice as given out by the public health authorities in Ireland seems to be that, Irish residents are strongly encouraged not to travel and people are encouraged not to go to Ireland. That seems to be, so official Ireland is not welcoming us, I suppose you could say. People want to play by the rules, but the rules should be sensible, they should be transparent. There's many, many reasons why, people's lives don't sit down national boundaries anymore, and, people are used to travelling, and lots of people's lives and lifestyles require a lot of travel, and that freedom to do that has been strongly curtailed.
And what would it mean to you, Donal, if the restrictions were lifted and you and your family could visit Ireland?
It would mean, getting back to Ireland would be lovely. I'd love to do that, and also, get back to a pub in Ireland as well.
In Dublin Airport, passengers were largely following the guidelines.
Well, I'm living in Greenwich, but I came from Gatwick. So I filled out my passenger locator form for the 14 days that I'm here, between my parents' house and my mother-in-law's house. Not taking public transport, not avoiding going to the shops, keeping any distance from anyone who might be high risk.
How do you feel about being asked to do all that, considering the rates between the two countries now?
You can only keep your side of the fence clean, so mitigate your own risks, do what you can, and that's all you can do.
My flatmate is from Donegal, so she comes back, she has to isolate for 14 days. There's
been a lot of people, a lot of Irish people, that haven't actually, during this
haven't been home for Christmas.
Haven't been home for a long time, actually, because of that reason.
I live here in Ireland, obviously. I just went to England.
Does it bother you that you've come from somewhere that's not worse than Ireland in terms of COVID, but you're being asked to restrict your movements?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Law is law. Okay, and at the end of the day, we are all working towards the same goal, which is keeping safe.
In response to questions from this programme on the Green List, the Department of the Taoiseach said a review is being done into the international situation, and there will be no changes to the list until that's complete. So should we have a Green List at all?
Really, there is no risk place
really on the planet at the moment. The green list was aiming to find low-risk places, and that would be fine if it was only Irish people going to those places, and that you had your own private jet to go to them. But there are so many other issues involved that it's really, it's impossible to predict which countries what might be safe to travel to. I suppose the rate per 100,000 is a good indicator as to where the population is going. But in terms of going on your holidays, the UK, for example, is a very large country, and within that there may well be hotspots. Those hotspots may well not be evident at the moment, but it could well be where you choose to go on your holidays.
That report from Louise Byrne. I'm now joined by Eddy Wilson, CEO of Ryanair. Thanks for coming in tonight, Eddy.
Thanks.
Look, cases are going up. Surely the last thing we need is what you want in Ryanair, which is travel restrictions to be lifted. Surely that's the last thing we want, to encourage people to travel.
No, that's not the case. I mean, it's for the economy. The report of the Aviation Task Force has been with the Minister now for over 2 months. All the answers are in that. We now have countries such as Germany, one of the largest economy in Europe, and we're closed for business with them, and their COVID rate, their rate is 50% less than Ireland. You know, and the Minister needs to add those countries to the green list that are less than the COVID rates in Ireland. Let's open the economy again and get moving. All the answers are there. It's inexplicable why they haven't acted on their own report, which has been sitting there for over 2 months.
I suppose, Eddy, the cases have been going up, and it's just not wise. It's not just the scientists and the medics saying it's not wise to encourage people to keep travelling all over Europe.
The reality here is that you look at the statistics. The hospitalizations are down, deaths are down, people are taking the appropriate measures. That's happening. Every other country in Europe is dealing with this in the same way. There is no medical evidence or otherwise or scientific evidence that international travel, particularly within the European Union, has contributed to any of this.
But
as
Eddy,
we all
Greece
know,
opened
let
up.
me finish.
Okay.
As we all know,
okay,
what has actually happened here is that it is domestically this has come about. You know, aviation has been responsible for less than 2%, and I would question whether any of that is due to intra-European travel. It is safe, that's what the European Commission says.
But if you look at a country like Greece, it opened up and it's had a spike in cases, and now quarantine has been imposed on that country by, for instance, Scotland today.
It is inevitable when people start moving again that cases are going to go up. We're going to have to live with this. The good news is people are not dying from it. The cases in terms of hospitalisation, they're the numbers we should be looking at. We're going to have to coexist with our economy and with the best medical advice. But we've all got to live as well. And in Ireland, aviation connectivity is an essential part of the infrastructure of this country, and we need to open it up now.
But Eddy, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's a bit disingenuous, isn't it, to say that, you know, the travel restrictions, that travel hasn't caused, you know, any of the cases, because travel hasn't been happening on a big scale. If you open up travel again, then the cases would rise.
But you're looking at that from an island point of view. Look at Europe. Like, it is one landmass. People are moving around, whether they're moving around on airplanes, on trains, or in cars. And the European Commission set this out in early June. We've deviated from that from no scientific basis whatsoever. It's on the Minister's desk. He should do something with it. He should be here tonight explaining why he hasn't opened up again, why we haven't got Germany, the UK, and about 10 other countries that are lower COVID rates than Ireland at the moment. There is no scientific basis for it.
But isn't this, in a way, very self-serving? You're a business, Ryanair, you want to protect your business, therefore you want travel restrictions to be lifted.
It is not just Ryanair, like it is Aer Lingus as well. Look what's happening here. They are, Aer Lingus, for example, are rumoured to be closing Shannon and Cork. They're moving some of their transatlantic flights away. And we are, to the UK, we are looking at a 20% reduction in September and October. We already took out 100,000 passengers in August. We are making decisions in Europe. But the government here is saying we're closed for business. We have to open up at some stage.
But Eddy, isn't part of the problem that Ryanair, you in a sense have always downplayed the gravity of the situation? I mean, on March the 3rd, Michael O'Leary went on Sky News, and this is what he said. the pandemic would be short-lived, we'd have a very good Easter, and then summer would come and would help burn it away.
No,
I mean, you just didn't take it seriously enough.
That isn't accurate at all. As a matter of fact, what we did was we led the charge with the European Commission right at the start. We were the first out about face masks. We were ridiculed about that. We were the ones that said that we were going to have to live side by side with this. We've only had NEFIT come around to this on the 24th of August. They came around on the 10th of August about face masks. We have been responsible. We've introduced all our safety measures for flying. Our business is risk assessment and safety.
Okay, well, would this compromise work? I heard Minister Eamon Ryan today. He was implying that the government is exploring the testing of airline passengers as a way of allowing the 14-day quarantine to be lifted. Would that work?
No, the Minister, all the answers are there in the report. He's had it for 2 months.
But why wouldn't that work?
Because people are moving around in Europe anyway, and the European Aviation Safety Agency have already set down the rules last May. There may well be some excuse for testing coming from countries outside the European Union, whether it's from the United States, India or Brazil, and they may well be sensible testing alternatives. But within Europe, Ireland has gone a completely different way than the rest of Europe, and we need to open up exactly the same as the rest of Europe, and there is no scientific basis for not doing that now.
Eddie Wilson, I appreciate you coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Richard.
And joining us now is Damien English, Minister of State at the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation, and Darren O'Rourke, Sinn Féin spokesperson on transport. Damien English, why aren't we adding countries to the green list that have actually a much better numbers than ourselves?
Well, as the Taoiseach and Minister Eamon Ryan confirmed today, we are updating our advice around international travel with the new COVID plan, which will be published and announced in about 10 days' time, December the 14th. In that, and before that, the Minister and his Department of Transport are looking at all the different scenarios throughout the different countries throughout Europe and trying to see what's the best advice. We'll take advice from the aviation report as well, and we'll make decisions there.
But for weeks we've had countries which have much bigger numbers than us, and you haven't, much better numbers than us, and you haven't changed the green list.
But again, Richard, for weeks we've seen increases in the virus, not just in Ireland but all over the world as well. We're at another very serious stage of managing this virus. So far, the public health advice that we've made decisions on has served this country extremely well, and that advice was used to make the restrictions around travel. We have never banned travel. We've advised against it. There are quarantine rules if you come in, but we never banned international travel. We recognise the importance to business here, to our economy, certainly coming into the Christmas period, the importance of families wanting to go home to see loved ones. We recognise that. Naturally, we would love to see our airlines up and running and flights, but it's how we manage the public health part of that. So the COVID plan on the 14th will deal with that.
Okay, but that's 10 days away. Why does a holiday maker going to, let's say, the Ring of Kerry from the UK pose a greater risk to the people of Kerry at the moment, let's say, than a Dubliner doing the same?
But again, a lot of the advice around the public health advice is to manage the movement of people and to restrict those contacts unnecessarily. We recognise people want to have
you haven't restricted the Dubliner going to Kerry.
Again, yes, I would say that we recognise people want to be able to have their own holiday. We did encourage the staycation. That's worked very well, and it's supported many industries throughout the country. People have had a little bit of a holiday. The difference is they're in a control. They're living in Ireland. They're here already on the land.
In a place with a higher COVID rate.
But the rate has increased over the last month. And again, you're asking why don't we change the international advice? Thankfully, the links to international travel of the virus are quite low. There's a reason for that. It's because of how we've managed it. But that comes at a cost and comes at a consequence. We recognise that. So we are prepared to update advice and guidance. And Minister Ryan said today...
Well, you haven't explained to me the difference between the traveller coming from London, which has a lower rate, and let's say the traveller coming from Dublin to Kerry. I mean, what is the answer to that?
The person living in Dublin is already on the island, and we had restrictions of movement around Ireland at different stages. We had lockdowns, but at the moment, international travel, we're not encouraging anybody to come in.
But where's the logic in that? I mean, this is about protecting people from the virus. It's not really anything to do with the island. It's to do with protecting people from the virus, and people coming from a lower rate place are being dissuaded from coming.
Yeah, but as all the evidence will show, the rates will change in different countries as well. Originally, it was hoped that the green list could be updated quite regularly, but over the month of August...
But they haven't been updated.
Exactly, because over the month of August, the virus has increased in Ireland, and we're at very serious levels again. Okay. And the priority had to be, in the last 7 to 10 days, was to get schools reopened successfully. That's been a major success and a very important part of this country and for our economy as well. And the COVID plan...
What's that got to do with updating the green list?
Again, the focus was on trying to do everything we could.
What, you mean you didn't have enough energy or time to look at the green list while you were doing that?
No, it wasn't about that. It's about trying not to jeopardise the success in reopening schools.
And how would that jeopardise it?
Because we've seen already, I mean, I've seen my own football club, when someone had travelled abroad and came home, it caused difficulty. So we tried to minimise the risk of spreading the virus to get our schools opened, to try and reopen all our businesses to get our economy back open. But we do recognise, Richard, the importance of international travel to this country.
And the aviation industry and the thousands of jobs.
Thousands of jobs. And as an island country, it's so important to us. So naturally, we do and will update that advice and guidance with the best practice and the best health advice.
Darren O'Rourke from Sinn Féin. Really, the government just doesn't want us travelling, and the public health experts don't want us travelling at all, if that's possible. And that has to make some sense, doesn't it?
Well, I think the public health advice has to come first and foremost. It's paramount, but it's very clear from the get-go in relation to foreign travel. This government has been all over the place, and the previous government has been all over the place in relation to it. I think that it's exemplified by the passenger locator form, for example. It wasn't mandatory. Then there was a reaction from the media. Then it was made mandatory. It took 3 months, only up till last week. It went online. At no stage was there any follow-up. That caused a huge amount of concern with people, lack of confidence amongst people in the systems that exist at our airports. The same goes for testing. There was talk at the end of July that there would be testing introduced. It might be random testing. There was talk of a red list. It never happened. So all of that is completely undermining the process.
So would you be happy with open travel, let's say, from the UK, which has lower numbers than us at the moment?
So I think what we need to do in relation to this is be consistent and clear with our advice. So it's clear a green list was introduced based on a set of criteria.
Right.
That set of criteria now, without anybody being told, seems to have shifted. Now, if there's a rationale for it, the government should come
Would you allow people from the UK, which according to the original criteria should be allowed come, let's say, under a green list type system, would you be happy with that?
Well, I think, again, we have to follow the public health advice in relation to it. So I'm not qualified to make that
what's
decision.
Your policy?
But I'm not qualified to make the decision in relation to what countries should or shouldn't be on the green list. But there are people who are qualified, and they should be consulted in relation to it, and people should be informed where the green list is.
But it's fairly clear that the public health people want to dampen down travel because they don't want it to happen. So the question back to you again is, it's a political decision. What's your political decision on it?
So the political decision we make in relation to it, you take the information from the public health advice, you inform the people where the green list is on a fortnightly basis, not when we like it or when we don't like it, on a fortnightly basis, consistent. You give clear information to people, and fundamentally we put a testing and tracing system in place in our airports that allows a gradual opening.
Would you have a green list, and who'd be on it? I mean, I suppose it's a simple enough question.
We would have a green list.
You would have a green list.
We would have
Who'd
a green
be
list.
on it? Would the UK be on it? Would Sweden be on it?
Those countries that the public health advisors tell us are suitable and appropriate, and at the minute the criteria is that they have a lower count per 100,000 than Ireland. If that's the criteria that remains to apply, well, then the UK and Sweden and Germany and other countries would be on it at the minute.
Okay, and you'd be happy about that.
But it would be, if the public health advice was that. But the most important point, and we haven't done it, and we've been talking about it for 4 months, is the testing and tracing system. We have no testing, no third-party testing at all. It's all self-declared at our airports, and that's completely unsatisfactory and gives nobody any confidence.
Okay, Minister Damien English. You can't let you go this evening without asking you about the pubs and the retaining of information. I mean, why are you so interested in what people are eating in pubs and restaurants?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to deal with something Darren just said. It's not a case to say that we're all over the place in this. The proof is in the pudding. The link of virus cases, the link back to international travel is very low. So the government's policy has been right. And Sinn Féin can have it both ways. You can't say follow public health advice and then not follow it. So we do follow public health advice, and that's what we're trying to do.